Welcome back to part 2 of How to Play with Your Dog with Tim Pratt from Diverse Dogs. In this episode, we dive deeper into the fundamentals of play, explore the prey sequence to make your play sessions more fulfilling, and highlight what to avoid when playing with your dog. Tune in to discover how purposeful play can strengthen your bond, build confidence, and make training more fun for both you and your dog.
Okay, so now we're gonna move on to our more sort of
Talk about play, how it
specific,
works.
yeah, like how it works.
The prey sequence
How
as
we
well,
do it.
I'm interested
Maybe
in.
how we do it. Yeah.
Well, I want to let people know that we might just do a quick like 1 minute about like drives. So like the drives that dogs have. You can Google this for more information. There's some people there's theories around how many drives a dog has, and like some theories there's like heaps, like 17 or whatever, but lots of trainers or dog people are quite happy to narrow that right down to like the things that are really like very useful to us, or they kind of become like umbrella sort of terms. So play is a drive. We have also got food drive, prey drive, social drive, defense drive. So like my livestock guardian dog would be high in defense drive, and she would spend a lot of time in defense when she patrols, and then she goes into defense. At the trigger is usually either she smells something, see something, hear something, whatever, so she'll detect something, or the animals that she's guarding alert, and then she'll go into defense for that. So that's a drive. Obviously, if everyone knows what food drive is, social drive can be social, to humans. It can be social to dogs, whatever. Social drive.
Wanting to fit in, like belonging. Yep.
And then prey. So prey drive is obviously if dogs were wild, so like the dingo that lives in the park next door, like it obviously eats animals. It has to catch animals and eat them. So the prey drive is this, and then we're going to go through the sequence of the prey drive sequence, because play, just like for humans, play for dogs is about rehearsing the sequence. And it's because we practice our survival stuff through play, just like humans. Okay. So human kids learn most stuff through play. That's how we learn, is through all your emotion regulation, problem solving, conflict resolution, social skills, all that stuff, planning. It's all through play that we learn that. Okay. Dogs are the same. So they're going to go through their sequence, predatory sequence. The best way for us to access these drives, all the drives, is through play. So even if you're using food in your training, you can play with food, and that will help increase. So when people are like, oh, my dog's got no food drive, you can increase food drive by doing games with the food. So, which it can be literally as simple as throwing it away from the dog, or people do like luring games where they're holding the food in their hand and they move it around backwards and forwards, and the dog has to chase the hand and then get the food and stuff like that. Okay. Are we across drives, Max?
Yes.
Great. You can Google it. There's heaps more that you can go into. There's more drives. It's fun to understand, but I think that's what you probably need to know for now.
It's useful just to say that drives are motivators of behavior as well.
That makes a lot of sense. Pasteur told me that you can't build drive, but you can encourage dogs to express their drive.
You can build drive.
I think that
I believe that you can build drive. I believe that dogs have probably a genetic predisposition to how much you can build it. But
I think that's what that sentence pertains to, is that the genetic constraints that we have, it's there, as in the drive exists, and then we're tapping into it and getting dogs to express it.
It's an interesting statement, because like personally I think that when you're looking at something like maybe certain drives that would have a particular sort of genetic, I guess, cap on how much that dog will display that type of behavior, but play's a little bit different, because also like building value to a behavior or an activity can also come about through experiential learning, and then building value on top of that. So each time you learn to do something, if you're getting a lot of reward out of that and you're enjoying that process, then that could be in a way, something that could perpetually continue to increase. I think you're always going to get to a point where, certain dogs aren't going to get as interested in play. But I think it's a mistake to say you can't build it, because what happens when we get into that mindset is that people don't try. And I've seen
maybe that's how I interpreted that as, so because I was looking at this through my livestock guardian dog lens as well, and trying to there's not that much out there about LGDs, to try and apply stuff to that lens, that dynamic of dog, because I think probably build drive and express drive to me probably sound pretty similar. I think I'm thinking of the same thing, but
well, the thing is, I mean, so many dogs that maybe grow up and they don't really get to experience this, because owners don't understand about helping our dogs to experience going through that prey sequence. So a lot of dogs get into their adult years, 2-3 years old, and you pull a toy out and try to start playing with them, and it makes no sense to them because they've never really been through that process. They might be curious about it, but I've worked with a lot of dogs that initially have been told, my dog's got no play drive. They won't play. They won't chase the ball. They won't play. They won't tug. They won't do all the stuff, right? And then when you ask them to show you, they grab a toy and then they start waving it around in their face. Okay, and that makes absolutely no sense to a dog, and will put a dog off that activity, because that is not actually engaging the dog in an instinct that it knows. That's actually just putting pressure on a dog with something that makes no sense to it. So in effect, it's an understanding of what play actually is what's important, and then also learning how to help our dogs sometimes remember how to do it. And I love analogies through this process. I love analogies like that, because again, for me, when I'm talking about people working through personal issues with regards to coming back to presence, and we're remembering actually who we really are. And so when we say that same sort of sequence and we apply that, sometimes we just need our dogs to remember that they're a dog, and that there's instincts there that they haven't been allowed to use. And then once the dog starts to feel that and they experience it, then that experience then will build the motivation to continue experiencing that. So I think it's like, for me, when someone says you can't build drive, I get the concept behind it, but I also think that it's important to really understand that it's not a linear thing, and it's not like it's not like black or white. And I think, because I've seen so many people say my dog won't play, and then they'll start playing with their dog and they give up after 30 seconds because the dog's not engaging with them, Sometimes it's taken me 15-20 minutes, sometimes 3 or 4 play sessions, even running around like a chook with a toy, before I even get a dog to pounce on a toy. But once they start engaging and we get that process initiated and the dog starts to experience it, then exponentially they start to engage more and more and more. And they may have a cap at some point where you won't go past, but just because a dog doesn't engage initially doesn't mean that they don't have a prey drive, or that it's, do you know what I mean? I think it's important to have that differentiation as well.
I think that like those drives really sort of have to be there. Like
so that's like play and prey, they're 2 different drives. So like you would say, like some dogs will go, okay, they'll chase a bird, but they won't play with a ball. So they're 2 different drives. And so the prey is a very, very, very strong instinct in most dogs, or a lot of dogs. Whereas play is something that could be there, but it's never been nurtured. It's never been allowed to express it in the way that actually builds the way that we want to use it. So
tapping into the sequence, tapping into what is like preferred by the dog, or meaningful to the dog, or motivating to the dog, because they're not all going to be the same. And we can talk a little bit as well about breeds and things that certain breeds might find really interesting to them, because they've had that part of the sequence more focused on in their breeding. Okay, so cool. Do you want to tell us what the predatory sequence
is? Yep. Okay, so when I talk about the I talk about the predatory sequence in terms when we're talking about it with play as the prey play cycle. I don't call it the predatory sequence because whilst it's based on that predatory sequence, it is different.
Okay.
There's some things in the predatory sequence that we actually want to avoid, and there's parts of the predatory sequence that once you start playing kind of get skipped altogether. And we also are not continuing to just go through the cycle from start to finish. It's very fluid. So, but the predatory sequence, like as a basic overview, is generally the dogs will they'll see, they'll get interested in something in their environment they might see as a prey item. Okay. And so that could be the mouse sort of moving in the distance, or it could be, a possum moving in a tree. It's just that initial awareness, right? Like it sparks a little bit of interest. So
we
you've got
get the odor as well. So we go round here. We get that we're searching for scent. Yeah.
Sense.
Like they're scenting. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that can also be part of it. In this instance with play, we're looking more at movement, because if you were definitely doing like some tracking or some searching, and then towards the end of that, then there would be the movement, right? So even if a dog was hunting, they'd be using scent and odor, but at some point they might then go visual where they see the actual item that they're hunting. But so if initially it would be the eye, so that they see it, then there's the stalk. Okay, so dogs that they're not going to want to like just rush in and scare the thing away, so you'll get a bit of stalking. Then there's the chase, then there's the strike, and you could combine the strike into two different parts. A lot of people talk about the catch strike and then the kill strike. Okay, so there's that strike where they're actually just catching the animal and holding on until they bring them down, and then there's another kill strike where they'll actually go for the jugular and try to get their teeth sinking in further into the animal. Then from there, then obviously once they've caught their prey, some dogs like to parade their kill. They like to walk around with it in their mouth. And just sort of, that's like a proud kind of, that's my prize. It's a thing that they feel is good, makes them feel good. And then there's the consume phase. And so I'm going to talk about the play cycle and a modified version of that prey sequence that's for play. So the modified sequence, the stalk is there, but it's something that once the dog starts engaging in play, pretty much goes out the window as soon as you pull out the toy, because the dog knows I'm going to chase the toy. Okay, the stalk goes away. But for dogs that don't know how to play, they haven't played they've never really played properly, or maybe for puppies when we're just building it, the stalk will be like, I'll throw a toy onto the ground on a rope, and then I'll just give it some little flicks, some tiny little flicks, right? And it just sparks a little bit of interest in the dog to look at it and go, what's that? Okay, and then you see it play out, because you flick it a little bit, the dog looks at it. And then you flick it a little bit more and the dog pays more attention to it, and they might lean forward a little bit. And you flick it a little bit more and the dog goes a little bit further forward. And then you flick it a little bit more and the dog starts to chase and go into that next part of the sequence. And then you start moving the toy away as though it was chasing a prey item. But once the dog learns the game, the stalk pretty much goes out the window for a lot of dogs, and they're just straight into chase. Okay.
We do what people might have seen as well. When you see two dogs play, and someone's got the toy and the other dog's like looking at them, and they're kind of sort of looking at each other, and someone might very quietly take a step forward, and then you see that elbow bang and they play bow or something like that, and then they're off, and then we're back into chase. We see a lot of stalk there. I see stalk funny when I've got the hose and Oliver wants to chase a hose border collie, and if I move the hose before I start to spray it, he stalks the direction that the hose is going. Kiki, I do a visual for her. I do a hand signal, which means I'm coming to stalk you, because I don't take things off of her, because she's a guard dog and I don't want to get bitten. And so this means I'm coming to stalk you. And so she runs off with the toy, and like you could just imagine her giggling, like it's the funniest thing. And then she stops and she looks at me. She's got her head low, and I do my stalk hand, and I stalk up to her, and then I play out that and then and then we're all running and off and jumping, and it's
Yeah.
all back into chase.
That's really cool that you brought that up, because I do all that too, in terms of, go up and I steal the toy off a dog if they're not paying attention, or they might go around with it, and you creep up to them and like really slowly, then the last minute you're like, haha, suck shit, I got it, and then you run away, right? So for me, yeah, that's stalking. That's a good indicator that what that is, because I've always just kind of seen those as little extra pieces to the game, like it's part of the game that enhance it. So like the way you put it is great. Thanks for aligning that. It's great. So the stalking is but it's that initial, it's kind of like you see it, I want it, I'm gonna just focus on it. So that when my moment is there, I'm gonna take it. So yeah, so we've got, for the prey sequence through play, we're talking stalk, chase, strike, okay, struggle, and parade. And so that's what I teach for the play. So stalk, chase, strike, struggle, parade. All right. Now, the reason why I use those words is because I think that's a little bit easier for people to understand in terms of how to apply what we want to apply during those phases. So for instance, when we want to chase, obviously the toy needs to be moving away from the dog. So there's no such thing as a suicide rabbit. It's a really good one to remember, right? Like the rabbit never goes up and just jumps itself into the dog's mouth. So when you see people waving the toy inside or trying to push the toy to the dog's mouth to engage a bite, makes no sense to the dog. They're not going to do it. But if you move it quickly away from them, they're more likely to chase it and strike it.
Do you know what? The story that I just told about Kiki with the mouse, she had her entire head inside the chicken bag with the mouse in there. But it wasn't until it ran and it jumped, and then she was like, bang, bang.
Oh, yeah.
The example of that.
Yeah, it's an instinct that they have that just switches. It just goes. Yeah, so you've got the chase, the strike. The strike is there's some different parts to it, right? Now, you know how I said earlier, you've got strike, the catch strike, and you've got the kill bite, right? Yeah. So in this strike section, and the strike and the struggle and hold are kind of like intertwined a little bit, because the strike initially for me is that first strike. It's like when they're chasing the toy, they're putting a lot of effort in, and then we present the toy in a way that allows them to actually come in and really strike hard into that toy and catch it. It's the capture. It's that moment when they catch the item or the toy. And then during the struggle or the hold phase is where they've got to hold on. Like they've got to catch their prey item, but the prey item's also trying to get away. So it's okay, I've got a hold of it. It makes no sense for it just to flop dead straight away. So there's going to be some sort of struggle and effort required for them to hold on to that toy, right? So in that moment, we want to make it challenging for them, but achievable. And sometimes that means it has to be an easy win for them from what we would consider easy, but for them, it might be something small, but then we build on it. So it has to be a struggle. So I say struggle because the struggle looks like the dog has to struggle to hold on to the toy, and we have to move the toy in a way that allows them to have to experience that. But through that process, that kill bite that they talk about is not really part of the game. But what is part of the game is like a re-grip, so to speak, and it kind of looks similar. So if you think about a dog gripping into the jugular, where they're gonna try and get that really deep grip, like they're gonna push their mouth right in and sink their teeth in. We want to encourage our dogs to do that because that's part of the sequence, but we do it in a way that just helps them to be rewarded or helps them to get a better grip during that struggle phase. So if my dogs taste the toy, they've caught it, but they're just hanging on with the front of their teeth and they're not letting go, and I'm moving the toy around and making them work for that. If they've put in some good effort to hang on to that toy, I'm going to very momentarily, just for a second, make the toy go still or slow down, just for a second, right? And the instinct that you see that comes out in a lot of dogs in that moment is that boom, and then they push into the toy and they grip it harder and deeper, okay? And so in those moments, if I'm working on the strike and I want to encourage and build that behavior, then I might just let the toy go at that moment, because then that reinforces to the dog that exact behavior of pushing in. If I've got that behavior, then I might start going, okay, they've given me that re-grip, and so now I'm going to re-engage by making the toy try to get away from them again. And it depends too on which part of the play cycle the dog really likes to engage in the most. So But that's an example of the way that the strike and the bite kind of work. It kind of like works together with the struggle. But the struggle is the part of the prey sequence where the dog is taking down the prey and they got to hold on. If they don't hold on, they lose the prey. Okay.
Mm.
And you'll see it during play that replicates. If I'm moving a toy around and the dog's not putting in enough effort with their grip, the toy gets away from them and they let it go, or it gets pulled out of their mouth. Okay. And then in that moment, I see a lot of people make the mistake where they go and try to put the toy back in the dog's mouth. And that's not actually, working through the sequence of the instinct. So if a rabbit gets out of a dog's mouth, they're not sticking around to try and jump back into it. They're gone, right? They're gone. So like the first instinct for them losing that item is to throw the toy back on the ground. It's moving away again. They have to give chase again. They got to catch it again, right? So that's that part. And then the win. So I just call it the win. And the win is when they get to win their prize. Okay. The win is the toy. They rip it off us or they pull it off us. They get to have it. They get to possess it. And so during that possession, they sometimes may do a couple of different things. They may bring the toy back into us, which is ideal because they learn that the way to keep this feeling and this experience going is to bring the toy back to us so that we can continue to repeat through the cycles. Or they're going to try to run away with it and guard it, or they're going to try to run away with it and maybe lay down with it. Like Sam said before, some dogs will do that and they'll go, "This is mine now. I dare you to come and get it off me." All right. And some dogs
That's
love
Dougie.
that.
Dougie
Some
does
dogs
that.
love that. And yeah, so we need to know which part, what our dogs like, what they don't like. And then they might also parade it. So the parade is they might be prancing around with it. Look what I've got in my mouth, And I think it's a mistake for when dogs bring the toy back to you to always just go back into engaging with play again. We do a lot for sure, or if a lot of times when a dog brings the toy back to me, yes, I'm going to engage back with play, but sometimes also they come into me and then I just kind of pat them and let them come in and hold the toy and just pat them and stroke them and say, "Oh, you're such a good dog. Look what you've got." And then, even I used to call it the victory lap, when we'd go and do a victory lap with the toy where we'd run beside them and they'd just get to carry it in their mouth, and they really love that. Well, some dogs really love that. So there's a lot of nuance in how dogs may or may not respond through the play. And so having an awareness around this stuff means that we can take note of how our dogs are playing, what's their play style like, and then we can try to match that. And through that experience, they'll also start to enjoy different parts of the game because we're allowing them to experience it. So that's kind of how I teach playing. It's more stalk, chase, strike, struggle, parade. Those are the things that I try to teach. And that's sort of come about really through just talking to people about it and trying to keep it as simple as possible for people that aren't dog people, that don't really spend a lot of time, breathing the stuff like I do, and presenting it in a way that makes sense to them. All right. Yeah. So, and then the other stuff that comes with that, like how to do the regrip, how to do stuff, that's all just part of building their skill set for the game. Rather than learning that that's part of the sequence itself. It's all related, but it's just a different way to kind of teach people, which I think is useful. So
I think that's probably most of what people need to know about. Yeah. You don't really need to know the prey sequence. I think it's good to understand, have an understanding
where it comes from.
Where it comes from. Like why does play look like this for a dog? Why is it so fulfilling for them? Well, because it's their genetics are telling them to survive and to practice survival this way. But it gives us a bit of an idea around, so I have a border collie, so stalk is quite important to him.
Important for them, yes.
I have a staffy. Strike is really important to her. She really enjoys that. I've got a Labrador. You better believe that consume is a big part of and I have to be very careful. So she's the one consume after parade in the sequence with the dogs catch whatever. If your dog catches a rabbit, that parade, that's when they'll go to ground and consume.
And consume, yeah.
So we want to prevent that. So most of the time, want to avoid that. Well, and this is where people say their toys get ripped up and stuff like that. Yeah, we want to avoid getting
we want to avoid that for a few reasons, but it's also important to distinguish the difference between a dog wanting you to come and steal that toy off them as part of the game, or guarding that toy as well as part of that consume phase. Because the reason why I just generally tell people to avoid it is because it's if a dog has any tendencies to resource guard something, then that instinct is going to come in that moment when they're on the ground and they're in a consume phase, and it's in their space, and now they own it, and they worked hard to get it. So now you're going to steal it off me. It's mine. Fuck off. I'm going to eat it. You can't have it. Okay. So it's important to kind of really have a bit of an awareness around that.
Yeah.
I generally don't see that a lot during play. Once we start playing the game, I don't see it a lot, but it is a risk. And I think it's important for just people to be aware of it. And my personal point on it is that if I'm starting to play with a dog that I don't really know very well, I won't try and go and steal the toy off them when they've got it on the ground. Like, I just won't. I'll use the toy on a rope. If they go to the ground, I'll flick the toy away. So we've started that game again.
Yeah.
But for dogs that I know really well and have a good relationship with, and they go to the ground with the toy, I might just kind of like just slowly start moving my way over towards them, stalk them a little bit, and then just wait for that moment when they just their focus just gets lost just for that split second, and then I'm snatching that toy and I'm running away with it, right? But I quickly let them win it again when they chase me, and then the play's back on again. But that's that consume phase. We don't want them to obviously rip up the toy, because then you're constantly going to be buying new toys. If they rip the toy and ingest part of it, it's not going to be good for them. You could have a visit to the vet. So there's a bunch of reasons why we want to avoid the consume phase. Yeah. But if your dog's just gone to ground with the toy and they're kind of got it in between their feet, and their focus is more on you rather than on the toy itself, that's probably going to be more of an invitation to go, come and get it, I dare you.
Yeah, and for a real visual for people, because I have a guard dog, if I try and steal the toy, when you try and come in and stalk up and steal the toy from the dog should, in response to that, they should pick up the toy and run away with it.
Try to get it. Yeah.
Kiki, if I try to steal the toy, bites my hand. That's the difference between
yes.
That's what Dougie would do as well.
That's good. That's a good way. Yeah.
Kiki is like, so you don't take my toy, I stop you by biting you because I am in defense, because I'm a guard dog, whereas all my other dogs and every dog I've ever met is like, ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
Picks it up and runs off.
And runs away. Yeah.
So if you guys listening at home play around with this and you do a bit of a stalk up and you're going to steal your dog's toy, and your dog's reaction is to, like, she's like an object. It's like an object guard that you see in the, was it French Ring or whatever that did it? She will let go of the toy and come and move me out of her space. Same thing with tug. You know, when you're playing tug and the dog's trying to win the game, she is the easiest way for me to win this is to push you off it. So she will tug a bit and then she comes in and she's pushing me backwards, and I'm like, he's a guard dog. So she's got a really different way, and I do things very differently. If you want to see some structure, Lord help me. Like we do things so differently with that dog. I am very strict with my windows, all that stuff is all very different. But that is just like one thing for people to keep an eye out for.
For sure. And definitely, and it is important to bring it up, and also like to think about that as sometimes can be breed specific. Boss, my Malinois, my last corrective services dog that I worked with, he wasn't allowed to be handled by any other handler in the entire dog squad. He had to be double gated, so he wasn't allowed to be moved by anyone other than me, because he was like, just an intense dog. So during play, I had to be extremely careful with him, because I'd be working in moments with him where he has such a strong association to that prey item that, again, like if we didn't have very strict structure and control about how we played, that it would be dangerous. So I would never be in a position with him where I would go and try to steal the toy off him if he was down on the ground with it. Okay. The way I would manage that is that I would pull out a different toy and go, haha, this one's better. And start running away with it. And then he'd be like, and then he'd chase me for the new toy. Okay. So there's ways we can work through that so that we can continue the game without putting ourselves in many types of conflict. That's a very nuanced part of play that is a lot more advanced, that I think could be another talk at another time.
I want to red flag that for people though. Like
For sure.
if you see that, I would get in touch with a trainer.
Yes, I will give you something that you can do, okay? Because oftentimes that's only the moment that's more likely to be dangerous is like I said, while they've actually got that toy in between their legs.
Yeah.
If you have a dog like that, keep your toy on a rope. So when you're playing with them, you can go through the whole play cycle, and then if your dog, you can see they're about to go down with the toy, then you just start pulling on the rope again, and you go back into struggle. You go back into that part of the play where they've got to hold on to win it. Okay, and you can go down the rope, and then you can bring the toy back into you, and then rather than allowing them to take the toy away from you and guard it and possess that, then you tell them to let go of the toy. So instead of the dog then having control over you in that moment and exercising some sort of control in saying, this is mine now and I'm not going to allow you to have it, you're switching that into, let's just keep this game going, move it into struggle, come down to the toy, have that tug of war with them. You can let them win it a couple of times, but you've still got a hold of the rope. So once they've won it, they can still experience that win. But then you can just go back into playing with them again and prevent the dog from going down into that position. Or you might just encourage the dog to walk around with it, and then you praise them for walking around with it and you encourage that. So you can avoid that part of the cycle purely just by how you manage the toy on a rope as well. So you're not putting yourself in a position where you even need to go down and reach into their space to get the toy in the first place. And so adding controls like teaching the dog how to let it go, making them wait for it sometimes, like adding in all those controls, really important part of the game, because that puts us in control of how, like we don't make the rules. We do teach the dog the rules and they play by those rules, but we actually ultimately are in charge of how the game proceeds. So we say when we start, we say when we finish, we say, when do you let go of the toy? We say, when can you chase? Okay. You can do all of it. And yes, through that process, a lot of it is just going to be instincts that I'm going to allow you to do it rather than me telling you you can do it. Like I'm going to allow it. But at some point, for instance, if it's with Boss, my old dog, like sometimes it just would get too intense and I could see it building. And I knew that if I didn't calm it down quickly, that I was probably going to go to hospital. So, okay. It would be, okay, everything's got to calm down, hold the toy, do an out command, toy stays by my leg so it doesn't move at all, into a down, and then we just spend 5 minutes doing nothing. Or I switch the game and I go, okay, we're not playing wrestle anymore with the toy, we're going to move into some throw-in retrieves. We switch it. So but so it's important to kind of have an awareness around how we can play. So just because your dog is showing some resource guarding behaviors doesn't mean you can't still play with them in a way that is safe. But if you have any doubt that you are in any kind of danger during a play session with your dog, stop and then call a trainer. Honestly, like it's very rare that
it is. It is very rare.
And you're more likely to have an accident with a dog just accidentally biting your finger because they're going for the toy. And that's part of also learning the nuances of the game and also controlling the game. So that's it. Stalk, chase, strike, bite, struggle, hold, and parade. And those are the different parts of the game that I teach. And then, we can go into each one of those a little bit if you want to and talk a bit more about what each one of those looks like.
With some practical kind of maybe one or two examples. We'll chip in if we think of any.
Sure. So we've already talked a bit about the stalk, so I might just go straight into the chase. So again, one of the main things with the chase is that movement is motivating and then there's no such thing as a suicide rabbit. Okay. So you don't want to be trying to run up to the dog and flick the toy around in front of their face. They hate that. Some dogs might grab it and start tugging on it, but they don't actually enjoy that. They're like, that makes no sense to them. And you're more likely to put them off play by doing that. So just remember that.
We see people do all the time.
All the time. Yeah. Okay. So if you do that and you've got a habit of doing that when you're playing with your dog, just catch yourself, give yourself a little slap and then start moving the toy away from them. Slap yourself with the toy, not your dog. So move it away. Okay. So even if that's short, sharp, fast movements away from your dog are more likely to instigate their interest to chase. Okay. So, but with that chase, and this goes throughout the whole process, but really important in the chase as well as in the struggle section, is that you want to make it challenging for them. So you don't just want to move it so that they just run and catch it. Okay. Like maybe in the beginning, if we're just teaching dogs how to play, but there has to be some challenge, right? So in order for the dog to actually feel any kind of achievement and fulfillment in the game, it's got to be a bit of struggle. So when you make them chase the toy, you're either going to be holding onto a toy and moving it yourself just by holding onto it and moving away or running away from them with the toy, or they might be looking at the toy and you run sort of to the side or do some side movements where you're holding the toy out in front of you for your dog to chase. Okay. And some techniques with that, if you're holding onto the toy, is that just at that very last moment when the dog's about to strike it and they actually do try to strike it, flick the toy away so they miss it, right? And then start moving the toy in the opposite direction. Now, if your dog turns around and they look at that toy with more intensity and then they run at that toy with more effort, then you let them strike the toy on that second round. Because then what's happened is we've built some frustration in that moment where the dog's actually tried to grab it, they've missed. And so then they've got another opportunity. They try harder and then they win. And that's what I mean by building momentum through progression and achievement, and being really intentional with making sure that we allow the dogs to win in moments where they put in effort. So if you want to reward effort, always in the chase, moving away. And if the dog loses the toy, okay, then run away with it. If they lose it, run away with it or throw it back on the ground and start moving it around again with the rope. Okay, but you have to also recognize when it's too hard for your dog and they're starting to go, this is not fun, I'm not even going to bother. Okay, so we've got to find that sweet spot, because if the dog loses it twice, but you keep flicking it away from them to try to build frustration, you're more likely to just build a dog that's going to go, I'm not even going to bother trying to chase it because I can't win. Okay, so in those moments, if I see a dog who's kind of struggling to put in the effort, or they've had a couple of misses, or they're not really biting the toy very well, I'm going to go back and just maybe make it easier for them, like maybe just wait for that moment when I can see they are putting in a little bit of extra effort, and then I'm going to hold the rope up so the toy just kind of dangles in front of them so they can come in and bite it. Okay. And then move into the next phase. Or if they're struggling, if I'm wanting to build drive in the chase, then when they strike it, then that's when they win it and I let it go, and then they can parade it, or you praise them for having it in their mouth before you start again. So we don't have to go through the entire sequence. Yeah. We just want to make sure that we understand the sequence, but we're also rewarding effort and progression, and we're intentional with when we let them win the toy. And one of the big problems I see with people when they're playing with their dogs is that they either miss the cues. So they miss the cues when the dog's actually put in a lot of effort, and instead of allowing the dog to win, they actually just rip the toy out of their mouth, or then the handler puts in more effort because their competitive streak starts to come out, and then they want to be the winner, or they've been told by some idiot that if you let your dog win, that there's some sort of dominance theory happening there as well. It's about making sure that we're very intentional with how we reward. So that's the chase. With the strike, again, moving into the strike, we want to make sure that we're letting them strike in a moment where they're putting in effort, and we're presenting the toy in a way that's allowing them to strike in a natural way. Okay, so when you see people, or if you've played with your dog before and you see people do this all the time when they're beginners, and they're moving the toy around like this, it's flapping all over the place, and it's like going from one spot to the next, and the dog's just looking at that and going to themselves, there's no way I can lock onto that and actually catch it. Imagine trying to catch like a fly. Like, think about like you're trying to catch a fly with a pair of chopsticks. Right? Imagine that. And so it's like, when a dog just sees an erratic thing going this way all over the place, they might try for a little while, but then they're eventually going to go, that's too hard, right? So we want to give the dog a target that they can actually lock on and chase, right? And rather than a lot of flicks and a lot of different movements in direction of the toy, we want the toy to be almost one directional as it's moving away from the dog. And if we want to build frustration, then at that last minute, we can flick the toy out of the way or change direction. But we want to try to give the dog a target that they can chase and they can lock onto, and then present the toy in a way for them that they can come in and strike it. So if we're not holding onto the toy, the best way to do that, if we've got it on a rope, is to, at that last second, just lift the rope up off the ground, up, a bit higher, so that the toy comes off the ground a little bit and the dog can run in and sort of, turn his head to the right a little bit and then strike it sideways. Okay, imagine like a battle dog going in to get the leg, it just sort of they move to the side.
Yeah.
But that's natural for a dog to do that, to be able to move in that fashion, to be able to bite. Or if we're holding on to the toy ourselves when they strike it, we're holding it in a way away from our body so that there's movement for them to continue moving through after they've caught it. But we're holding it down low at their level initially. We might bring it up a little bit higher later on for some dogs, but we want it to be generally at their level so they can run straight in on it and then strike it with some gusto, with a little bit of effort. And so that's the strike. And the strike, it's really important to kind of make sure that we offer the strike or present the toy for the strike when the dog is showing us the most effort in the chase. Okay. And if we're seeing a decline in the effort, then that's a mental note for ourselves where we go, we've missed the moment.
Okay. Yeah, because they've crossed that hill and they're like giving up.
Yeah. So then you might have to go, okay, we've got to give the dog a couple of easier wins and then start building it again. That doesn't say, like you can just go back. So that's the strike. The struggle and the hold is, let's say dog comes in, they bite the toy, but they've grabbed it, but it's not a very good bite, right? I'm not going to, once they've bit the toy, I'm not going to just start moving around and throwing the toy around like a wrestle, because I don't actually want to rip it off the dog. I don't want to win. I actually, as the handler, I don't want to win. I want the dog to feel some struggle and I want the dog to win. Yeah. So in order to do that, we have to play with the dog and the toy in a way where we're using a little bit of awareness around how much effort is that dog putting in, what kind of dog they are, because a Labrador is not going to be able to bite as hard as a Rottweiler. And that doesn't mean they're not putting in the same amount of effort. That's from the perspective of that particular dog. So what we do is we just keep the movement happening. So if a dog strikes into that toy, I'm going to then just put a little bit of tension on the lead or the rope that's on that toy. And I'm just going to start moving the toy away from them or holding tension. And initially it's just going to be a little bit. I want to see how the dog responds. And if the dog responds by putting a lot of effort back in against that tension and pulling back against it, then I'm either, depending on the stage of the dog's development, going to allow that dog to win because I'm rewarding effort and allowing them to experience that the more effort you put in, the more likely you are going to win. I don't care about the grip at that stage. I'm just rewarding effort because I want effort.
Yep.
Okay. Or if the dog's in a little bit more of a development stage and we've started getting a lot of ground with the play, and they put a little bit of resistance on that, then I'm going to put a bit more back, right? Then they might pull a bit more resistance on me, and then I'm going to put more back. And then on that third one, when they pull really hard back against me, then I'm going to let the toy go, or I'm going to make them feel like they've pulled me off balance. And sometimes I actually let them pull me over. I fall over theatrically, to make it look like, oh, you've pulled me over. Look how strong you are. Like there's no, how can I even compete with a strong dog like you? That's the feeling we want them to have.
That part of the game is really important where we go, when we're saying like, you've got to get into it. What we mean by that is you become a character in the game where it's not all about just the dog and how the dog's interacting with a toy. You're a character. And so just like you're playing with a little kid and they stab you with their toy sword, you have to pretend to die. Yeah. You can't just be like, that's not a real sword.
Yeah,
exactly. You're psycho. So you have to become the character and go, if you're going to let the dog win, then you need to lose. So there has to be a loser and it's you. So you've got to go, oh, I can't believe you got it.
Yeah.
You're the winner. Yeah. Whoa. And then they'll do a little bit of parading usually where they're like, I'm the winner. And you've got to, you're the spectator of the parade. There's no parade if there's no spectator. Exactly. So your character is the spectator. And so now you're going, wow, look at you. That's so special what you have. That's so wonderful. Like the royals are driving down the street and you go, wow, look at them. Yeah, you're meant to be doing that for your dog. You're meant to be playing a character in the game.
It's really important. It's really important. And especially at the start, when you're building this behavior, and it seems silly, to ask us, like, the dog, sometimes dogs, I just feel the slightest little bit of pressure go backwards on the lead. This is where it's really nuanced, especially if you're trying to get a dog to play that is not playing very much, right? And you might only get one chance in a session to respond to that little bit of movement that that dog gives in a way that makes the dog feel like they actually were successful in doing that action. And that might be the tiniest little bit initially, right? But for the dog, they put in that tiny little bit of effort. I feel a tiny little bit of a tug on the rope, okay? And then I let that make it look like it's pulled me off balance towards them.
Yeah.
You know, and then, oh, look what you did. You're such a strong dog, right? And then I'll go and grab the rope again and then start moving it away from them. And then when they bite it the next time and they try again, you're going to feel a little bit more of an increase in the effort they put in, because they realize that, oh, that worked. It works what I did, right? And so then they try it again, and guess what? And it works again. You know, I might do that 3 or 4 times. And then on the 5th time, they try it again with the same amount of effort, and it doesn't work, then they don't win it. So then they try harder and then they win. Right. So then we start building this belief in the dog that, oh, the harder I work, the more effort I put in, the more I can succeed. And that's the overriding concept that we need to think about when we're playing with our dogs, because when we're playing with our dogs, we're wanting them to experience achievement.
Yeah, and we want the dogs to know, like, that we want them to know that they're allowed. Like, they're allowed to really try. They're allowed to take this toy.
Yeah.
Because as you mentioned right at the beginning, like, we've been telling them no about all this shit they're not allowed to do. But what we see with dogs is, like, they're holding back from really kind of getting into the game. And there's a couple of reasons that can happen. But, you know, just giving them those opportunities to express themselves and then reinforcing that expression. So I expressed a little bit of effort, and then you reward that by they win the toy and you go, wow, you're the winner. And they go, oh, like, you liked it when I expressed that bit of effort. And then you're gradually encouraging them to express more and more and more. And then you'll find, like, dogs that have been taught that they can express themselves in play are the ones that get right into it.
That's it. Yeah.
And you can get right into it with them. They know that they are allowed.
Exactly. And the 2 biggest killers for play drive for dogs to engage with people is going to be that one that we spoke about initially, is that we just continually punish these instincts in areas and we don't provide them with an external outlet and teach them that you always are going to have an opportunity to express that side of yourself. Or it's people that see the game as a competition and they're fighting against the dog for the tug of war, which means that they have the tug of war, but then the human normally wins. And when the human normally wins, and then the dog's not really getting the enjoyment or the fun of experiencing that win. So it's definitely an important part of it. And the more theatrical you can be, the better. I remember when I relate things back to my career in corrections, because we used play for everything. And when I first got onto the dog squad, I wanted it so bad. I wanted to be a dog handler so bad that it was like, it was all or nothing. This failure was not an option for me in that moment. And so when they said that, you know, you've got to go out there and be more exciting than anything else in the dog's environment, I would literally go out there, and no matter my dog, the first drug dog that I had, Tammy, he loved to play, but she would always run away with the toy, always. And I would always be in positions where I would be left on the field at the end of the day. Everyone's gone home and I'm trying to catch my dog because she's running around with the toy, right? So, but when I used to play with her, it's like that inner child would come out, and I have to forget, and I did forget, that there was like 10 other blokes watching me that all had really big egos, you know, and that maybe would be something that a lot of people would feel like embarrassed or would not want to show other people because you feel silly, right? Or you look stupid, but you're only going to get back from your dog what you're willing to give to them. And so in those moments, like, I had to let go of all ego. I had to let go of all thoughts about how I looked, because if I didn't run around like a chook and act silly and make high-pitched noises, like I wasn't going to keep the interest of my dog, and so I'm really glad that I had her as one of my teachers, because I see a lot of dog handlers that never had to do that because they had dogs initially that were just instinct. They wanted to play already and they never really had
Yeah.
to put in a lot of effort, right? And when they get new dogs that struggle with the game, instead of putting the effort in and actually building that dog up, there'd be an attitude sometimes where it's that dog's fucked. I want a new one.
Mm.
And it's the dog's fault. It's the
Mm.
dog's fault. They don't have what it takes, and it's, well, actually, that dog may have what it takes, but you haven't given it an opportunity to really show you yet, because you're not bringing the energy, you're not bringing the fun and excitement for the dog to feel safe in that space, to be able to reciprocate that. And I'm not having to dig at corrections dog handlers by any means. They're, obviously like great at what they do, but I'm talking more specifically about play and how we can get dogs to engage by being more ourselves. And I was teaching a dog today. I was working with Bridget and we were going through some play with a client, and the dog we were working with, they were struggling to get the dog to engage with the toy, and they were trying, and I was trying to guide them through it, but they just weren't getting it. And so then I just grabbed the toy. I said, "Can I try?" And within about 20 seconds, I had the dog biting the toy and playing, because I was able to raise the energy and how I was trying to deliver it, right? So, and the dog wasn't really interested in biting the toy, but it wanted to chase us. So I just started running around with the toy in my hand. And then when the dog was at its peak level of arousal, I just presented the toy in front of its face and kept moving it away from it. And then that moment, instinct kicked in and it bit. And then as soon as it bit the toy, it was met with a little bit of resistance, and it met that resistance by adding more resistance, and then it won the toy. And then it was on like Donkey Kong, because it was, and it's, we've
You've
got to,
shown them the game and they're like, oh, I like that. And like, oh, we can
yeah,
actually keep playing that. And
yeah,
they're like,
it's
whoa,
sometimes
awesome.
you got to show them, but sometimes you have to be willing to bring that yourself. I often say to people, like, you want engagement from your dog, and you want your dog to play with you and do all these things and pay attention to you in the face of all these distractions. Well, what are you actually presenting to your dog that is going to make you more interesting in those moments, right? And it's not about the toy. The toy, it's not about the toy. If you can't show your dog that you genuinely want to play with them, you genuinely want to be there with them and do that with them, if that's not genuine, your dog's going to pick up on that, and they're not going to give you the same level of engagement back.
So we have been chatting about pray and play sequence and how important parts of that can be to your dog, and different dogs going to like different things, etc., etc. We're talking about making sure that you're a character in the game. So, just imagine that when you're playing with a toddler human, you actually get into the play.
It's a good analogy. If you're wrestling with your kids, and if they put in a bit of effort, you're going to fall over and make a noise, and they're like, "Oh, you got me," make them feel like they've accomplished something.
And then you should feel silly, like you were saying before. You should feel silly, and it's actually really fun. So I think I can't remember.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah. I tell all my life stories, but I'll just tell quickly when I was going through this with myself with Kiki, I did a bit of a deep dive for myself into play and like childhood play and stuff like that. And I'm literally a child psychologist, but I haven't done a lot of play therapy specific type stuff, even though we use play in therapy for sure. But anyway, I found this book called The Way of Play, and it is an audio book. You can get it on, because I only listen to stuff. The Way of Play. So it's some psychologists that wrote it, and it goes through. Hang on, let me just pull up who wrote. Oh gosh, now I'm playing it. Oh Lord. Okay. Tina Payne, Bryson, and Georgie Wisen Vincent. And it's really fun. It talks through, so it's really interesting, like even just for parents of kids to listen to, but it's really interesting because it talks through like the purpose of play and like how to play, but it also talks about how, it can feel like hard and weird as an adult to play because you don't really want to, you don't really want to play. but it acknowledges all of that. So that was really helpful for me to go through that and go, okay. And it's just really helped me kind of tap into a bit more. Okay, no, I'm going to really, playfulness was like my 2025. I'm going to conquer this and actually become like more playful, genuinely playful with the dog, because I knew that was missing. So there's a little tip there if people are interested in that. Common mistakes that I think I see people make, we've touched on, but the toy in the dog's face, dangling the toy in the dog's face, hitting the dog in the face with the toy, dangling like really shoving toys at dogs and stuff like that. I just want people to know that if the toy has value, that you've got to show the dog that the toy has value. So that means that you take value in the toy, which means you want it as well. And then that helps the dog want it. So if you've got anyone that's a multi-dog household, you'll see that one of your dogs will pick up a toy and then all of a sudden the other dog wants that toy because it's like, well, that's got value. We're kind of trying to get a little bit of that happening, a little bit of, this thing is cool and fun to play with. And so especially if your dog's struggling to express this part of themselves, you can take that toy and go and play with it yourself, run around with it, throw it around, act like it's really special and important.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's definitely something that can get dogs going that are struggling with it. Like, just be silly, run over to the toy and pick it up and then throw it in the air. And then run over and chase it and grab it again, kick it, pick it up again, throw it up in the air. And you kind of like, you see dogs doing that sometimes on their own too anyway, right? Like they pick up a toy, just throw it up in the air and then they like shake it around a little bit and, then they might look over at whoever's around, kind of a bit of an invite to come on, let's go. Yeah. So, but I think that's a really important piece, is just not care what other people think. Because really that's what holds people back, I think, is what are other people thinking when they look at me doing this? Or do I look stupid, or do I look silly, or there's all these internal dialogues that come in for us in those moments. And it's just play with your dog. Like if you're playing with your kids, like you're just playing with your kids, like you're just having fun.
But people really struggle with that. Like it's hard even to do with your human kids. So that's where that book, and also if you search that book up, there's those, I found it through a podcast. So those authors have done the podcast rounds as well. So you can listen to a few podcasts about it if you search them up.
Yeah, cool.
So that's like allowing yourself to be silly and allowing yourself to really lean into play.
I suppose this is more your cup of tea with regards to like the psychology around that for adults.
Well, and that's why that's it. And that's why I went on a deep dive for myself. And I think I mentioned this the last podcast we did with you, Tim. I think I mentioned that I was trying to get this play going with her. And then she would pick up my spoon. I have these plastic ladles that I mix the feeds with, the animal feeds. And she loves hard plastic. That's her favorite texture, is hard plastic. So she always steal my spoons, right? That's fine. They're like a few dollars. They've got tree marks in them. Doesn't matter. Like I've got replacement ones because she keeps stealing. It doesn't matter. But she would pick up the spoon, and I know not to chase her if she's got something. Like we played the treasures game where I like, oh, well, it's so special. What have you got? Bring it and show it to me. And, and she gets to be really proud and show me what she's got. And then I swap her and all that. I know all that, right? So I'm not doing that. I'm not chasing her. I'm not doing that, right? She picks up the spoon. I'll never forget this. She picks up the spoon and I just looked at her and I had this like feeling of, I don't want you to have that. That's mine. Just out of inconvenience. Like I was saying, like it's a low value item, blah, blah, blah. And just that sensation of me going, I don't want you to have that. I want that. That's mine. She lit up. She's lit up and she was like, you son of a bitch, I gotcha. And she's running around and I'm not chasing her. I'm just looking at her going, I'm not a part of this game. Okay. And she is just running around and she's having the time of her life because she knew you want it.
Yeah.
You want this.
And
that makes me so happy.
And they are so perceptive. And that's the thing. Like they read us like a book. He would have known. There would have been a look that you gave her and she would have seen that look 100 times in
My
play.
tension.
Yeah, or the tension, or even if it's like when you have had a bit of a game or whatever that was, she would have seen it, and yeah, exactly. She knew exactly what you were thinking, that you wanted that toy. Yeah.
I was struggling to get that from her in the play, and I was like, oh, and that's when I really went, no, I'm deep diving this. I'm deep diving it. And I started
Yeah.
like researching and stuff like that. I'm like, what is going on? Because she could sense something in me there and she just went lit up. And I'm like, I can't get her to light up like that when I'm trying to play with her. And so I had to actually dive in and go, okay, Sam, so you have to learn how to play. Like
Yeah.
you actually have to unlock this for you.
Yeah.
And this is what we're doing. This is what me and this dog are doing. We're focusing on play, and I'm going to conquer this. And I love our play now. Like I've improved so much with my ability to like just lean into play and become all that. So if it's one thing for us to say play with your dog, but it is actually, it's a skill.
Yeah.
And I want the humans to know that if it's not coming naturally to you, I totally get that. But I do think that there's room for us to tap into our play a bit more.
Yeah. It's definitely a skill and a nuance. And I think, it's normal for people to also just be a little bit unsure of the unknown. And when something doesn't feel natural, or if it feels uncomfortable, then it sometimes doesn't feel safe as well, And so then there's parts of ourselves that will resist that, or we'll have some internal dialogue that will make us maybe not really try as hard or not put as much effort in. And people will know, like they'll feel it when they're playing with a dog in the backyard when there's nobody watching, right? Or compared to if they're at the park and they're trying to play in the same way. And there may be some little differences in like how much effort you put in or how silly you are, or and it's, I guess, it's an important piece to talk about, because sometimes for someone like me who's been playing with dogs forever, and I'll just go out and act like a goose and I don't care, but I have to remember that 20 years ago, the first time I had to do that wasn't like that, like it's something that you have to, anything, I guess, is just push through that little bit of feeling, oh, this is uncomfortable, or this makes me feel a bit strange, or this is a bit weird for me, and then but just put yourself in that position anyway, despite those feelings, so that it can become a place where you do feel safe to express play as well. And who knows, that might extend into other areas of your life as well, that would help you move through other things too,
I think so.
Cool.
So shoving things in our dog's face, that's not the way to invite anyone to play. So don't try to refrain from that.
Imagine running up, like a kid running up to another kid and saying, hey, come play with me, and throwing a soccer ball in their face.
Yeah. Well, they do that. All our primary teachers are like, will be going, yeah, that's exactly what some kids do. And no one wants to play with them. It doesn't work.
There you go. Point exactly.
Yeah.
No.
So if too many misses, so you've already touched on that as well. That's a really common one. And I've even seen very experienced dog handlers in working spots and seminars. And that's too many misses.
Yeah.
So a miss is when you letting the dog sort of chase the toy and you're going to let them strike it. But to build that frustration that Tim was talking about before, you're moving the toy along, and as the dog sort of goes to grab it, you sort of flick it out of their way and you change directions with it, or you move it around or whatever. And it really builds up, especially dogs that are pretty committed to play already. It'll really build their desire and chase to get the toy. But too many misses, especially too early on, as Tim's already discussed, it will destroy the engagement. Like the dogs we're trying to build their confidence in the game. Yeah. So if we teach them that they can't win and we're always the winner, then they're not going to develop that confidence. And I think this is really especially important for puppies as well, to remember that's just give yourself a maximum one miss, and you can do a maximum one miss for a long time before you stuff anything up by not doing enough misses, like you can let them get it the second shot, see how you go.
And a miss is something that you wouldn't even really need to do initially with a dog. We're not trying to go straight to doing that. That's one little technique that we can do to try and build a bit more engagement, and to get a little bit more, I guess, effort in dogs. But in order for you to really execute a miss like that, for it to be effective in building the frustration anyway, the dog's already got to be coming at it pretty hard to begin with. You know, so it's a good point. Remember for those listening that the key thing is that it needs to be challenging but achievable.
Yeah.
Okay. And achievable is that key point there. So if the dog tries really, really hard 2 or 3 times and they miss every time, all of a sudden that achievable piece goes out the window, right? Whereas some dogs, if they just are really fast and they catch it really easily each time, then it becomes less challenging. So you got to try to like dance that line between making it challenging but also achievable, and always go towards less challenging than too hard, you know, because you can always build it. You can always build it. But when you start, let them just win.
Yeah.
You know, for a bit of effort and then build on it. But it's a good point for sure.
What about, I think this plays into what we were saying before about really just let yourself be silly, but I think people give up too early.
I see this all the time.
Yeah, they're not feeling like they can fully get themselves into it. They might, like we were saying, feel silly, feels like weird or whatever. And then the dog sort of not engaging straight away. And then you feel even more awkward and stupid. And you're like, oh, the dog doesn't want to play with this, so I'm just not going to do it. And then you give up and then it's all over. And I think that if we could encourage people to not give up so quickly and change your tactics a little bit with some of the advice that we're giving today, and really try and set a personal goal for you and your dog that you're going to get something, you know, and just stick with it.
Yeah, and celebrate the small wins. Just because it's only small doesn't mean it's not big, you know. So think about in the breast and barks retreat that we did last time, and one of my clients that was there and we were playing, and her dog, beautiful dog, she just didn't want to chase the toy. She wanted to chase her owner. Like, she had a great time running around with the owner, just running along next to her and, you know, but we couldn't get her to bite the toy. And we spent 2 days, and they were spending maybe 10, 15 minutes at a time, and I was instructing each dog. And so the progression for her was, she went from not wanting to engage with the toy at all, just completely not interested in it. And then in her last session, she leapt towards the toy and bit it once and then let it go. You know? And
Yay.
So, yeah, exactly right. And so celebrate. And then when we caught that moment, and there was a huge amount of celebration in it, and she got to run around with her owner a lot more and got lots of pats and cuddles. But so, you know, and some people might look at that and go, oh, that's nothing, you know, like the dog, they literally just bit the toy and let it go. But when you look at that in context, and we've gone over 2 days and spending a lot of time trying to engage a dog to bite the toy to start this process, and she wouldn't even look at the toy initially, and she wouldn't bite it. So we've actually had 100% improvement in that.
Absolutely.
In that act for the dog to actually bite the toy and start to kind of get the idea that, oh, okay, that's what you want me to do, like to actually bite that thing, you know? And so that seems really small, but actually for that dog in that moment, that's a really big moment.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes too, we really need to remember that there's so many things that will go into whether a dog's going to play with you or not, right? So there could also be, it depends on the environment that we're in. You know, a lot of dogs won't engage in play straight away if they're unsure of their surroundings, if they're anxious dogs. You might see dogs that will go into a new area. If they're at the park and you pull a toy out to start playing, they might prefer to go around sniffing and smelling their environment because they're assimilating themselves with what else could be around, you know? And so all their focus might be being put into something else. It could be that there's other competing motivators in the environment, you know, like some dogs might be more food motivated than play motivated. And so if there's food around, I was playing with a dog earlier today and wouldn't play with the handler. And then we took the food pouch off the belt and then went back out again and played again. The dog had a great time. So little things to consider as to maybe why, but just don't give up. And if you're seeing little improvements, just keep going. And if your dog's really struggling, just give it a really good red hot go. And like when you feel like giving up because it's not working, just decide to go an extra minute, you know, just give it that little bit more. And You'd be surprised. You'd
Yeah.
really be surprised. I've seen people move their dogs through sometimes, weeks worth of trying to get them to play before they really started getting any momentum. And remember too, like you said earlier, Sam, a lot of dogs might feel like there's some fear around actually biting something or chasing something if we've been suppressing that for their entire life. Like they have a belief system of fear around, I'm not allowed to bite things, I'm not allowed to chase things, right? So it's confusing for them. It's confusing, and there could be some internal conflict happening in their thought process as well with regards to, okay, I'll run around and chase you, but I'm not allowed to put my teeth on things, So sometimes we have to build the safety back up for dogs to know that, no, you're allowed to here. I'm going to let you. You're allowed to, and really celebrate it when they do. So they learn that, oh, okay, I'm not in trouble. I'm actually allowed to do that. And if you've had a dog that's been suppressed in thinking that they're not allowed to do that for 2 or 3 years, that's a pretty strong ingrained belief within their psyche, So it takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not sure if people know this, but you can play with your dog on lead, and in fact, you should. So,
Yes.
what keeping our dog on the lead does, which it's all I can do to get people to put their dogs on leads, honestly. Everyone's got their dog off the lead all the time, and I know it's, oh, we're at home and we're in our backyard. Why do I need my lead on? Trust me, use your lead. Teaching a
I've
dog
got
to
some good examples of why.
teaching a dog to play on lead is very important because remember, dogs, first of all, they see the world in pictures. So if you want them to play with you somewhere else that's not your backyard where they're going to be on lead, you have to practice that and show them that they can do that. But also all of those environmental distractions that Tim was talking about, that those are minimized hugely if you have the dog on lead. So then the dog habituates to the situation way faster because they can only get to what they can get to. And then the most interesting thing in this, 1.5 meter circumference that they can reach is you with this toy. You are going to have another chance at success there. Or you don't have the option to go and wander off and go and do this other different thing or whatever, you're here with me, so you might as well play with the toy.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think on lead too, because we want to control, ultimately we do want to be in control of the game, like of how it moves.
Yeah.
And if this can be negated a little bit if you are playing with a toy and it's attached to a rope, but I like to just have a lead on the dog regardless. Like even if I'm not holding onto the lead's dragging on the ground. So at any point I can pick it up if I need to. Like if things get a little bit out of control and the dog's getting a little bit too much, right? I can hold on to the lead and I can just use it for a little bit of extra control. Also, when the dog wins the toy and we want to encourage the dog to bring the toy back into us, if the dog's not on a lead and they decide that they want to run away with it and go under a tree, then we've got to go and try and get the toy back off them. And we're not really getting much flow. Like we need flow. So if we're trying to teach a dog that the value of the play is actually to bring the toy back into me, not run away with it, then having a dog on a lead means that we can let them win the toy, move away from them straight away, just start moving away from them, and even use the lead to just give them a little bit of guidance to, hey, come on now, come back in towards me with the toy. And then once they get close to you, you grab the toy and then the game starts again.
Yeah.
And if you focus on continuing going through that process, then the dog starts to learn that, oh, actually bringing the toy back into mum or dad, that keeps the game going. That's way more fun. More fun. And so, but you wouldn't be able to do that if you didn't have a dog off the lead. You wouldn't be able to let them win it and then try to give them that guidance to come back into you as well. So it's a good point. And then just for safety, because, you could be playing with your dog, all of a sudden in the park, another dog comes running over, you want to be able to manage and control that scenario quickly. Put your dogs on lead, guys, always.
It's such an underrated piece of equipment because it's literally like a piece of rope. But honestly, guys, please use your leads.
People, I think it's important, and maybe just a good point as a bit of a segue, but, I do talk to people about this all the time, have a lead on your dog. And if you're experiencing problems with the behaviors in the house, you need to have a lead on your dog. You need to be able to give them feedback in the moment, and you can use your lead for feedback in a lot of different ways. And people learning the lead itself, and this is another big thing that I teach people in Breasts and Barks and just in my clients in general, is that the lead is a communication device. Okay. So you can tell your dog so much more in terms of what you want them to do through the proper use and nuanced use of the lead than you will ever be able to with your voice. Because dogs understand when you know how to use the lead and you know how to use directional pressure and remove pressure at the right time, release pressure at the right time, just being able to guide your dogs in ways that make sense to them and give them feedback in the moment for behaviors as they happen. The lead's vital. It's so vital. And so people, have a lead on your dog. If you've got a puppy running around the house, have a little lead on them so that you can respond to their behaviors as they occur. So your dog can actually learn that, it's that behavior that I did right there, because you had the opportunity to give them feedback in the moment in a way they can understand without yelling and screaming at them or saying a bunch of words that they have no idea what you mean. So put a lead on your dog.
Yeah. Okay, very good. So I think I've got these 2 points here, but I think that they're probably 1 point combined, which is also related to the stuff we've already said, not acknowledging the dog's experience of this interaction. If we become too self-focused and too task-focused, so the task is play the game, throw the ball or tug the toy or whatever. And our human being gets really focused on, well, that's the task, and not looking at our dog's experience of this and seeing what is it that they really do and what don't they like. Because sometimes I will see handlers being a little bit much for their dogs. So they're a little bit loud at them. They're kind of in their space and over the top of them and stuff like that. And you can see that the dogs are like I'm fine, but I don't love this.
Yeah.
I think, experimenting with get down on your dog's level, getting down low, or what types of things does your dog actually really respond to, what excites them. But you can't know that if we're not paying attention to the dog that's in front of us. So for that, I would really love, and all these points, I'd love people to start filming their sessions with their play sessions with their dogs. And you might think that's a bit weird for me to say your play session, but it is a training session. Like, you are actually really working your dog when you are teaching play. So film your sessions and watch it back and see all the weird things that you do that your dog's probably balking at, or, that you might see some things that you do and then that kind of like stifles the game for the dog. Or you might see yourself doing 15 misses in a row and go, oh, I didn't even realize I was doing that. Yeah. So if you like, especially, people do along the ground, like when you move your toy along the ground in like short bursts of movement, that can get dogs really excited. But remember that those can be misses as well. And I do see people doing a fair bit of it's alive on the ground and the dog just can't catch it at all. And then they go, okay, game over, and on to the next sit or whatever. And the dog's never gotten the toy. And I'm like,
toy,
oh my God.
Or what happens is the dog's chasing the toy, and then the handler realizes that, the dog's given up. So then they kind of just move it really like in front of their face really slowly, and then the dog bites it, but there's no effort in that moment for the dog to actually win it. So
yes. So it's not, sometimes because we're using play as a reward, sometimes I see people sort of just going through the motion of, okay, dog, here's the toy. And there's nothing, there's no actual game, there's no actual play.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's important to kind of understand that when you're learning to play, it's going to feel a bit clunky and you're going to make mistakes as well. That's normal. That's totally normal. And to not beat yourself up if you do make any mistakes, but definitely videotaping yourself, having a look at your play sessions back will be really insightful. Video recording your training sessions is one of the best things you can do for anything. I do it often. Sometimes I still make mistakes. I've been doing this for a long time and I make mistakes all the time. And I don't realize I make the mistakes sometimes until I see it back on the camera. And sometimes even with my social posts, I'll have stuff and I go, I can't post that because the other dog trainers will see me do that and they'll rip me for it, But everyone makes mistakes. And I think what's really important to remember and so I guess in line with what you just said is that the most important thing with play is that you're both having fun. Okay. If you're
Yeah.
both having fun, you're doing well.
Yeah.
And all of the rest of it is stuff that you can get better at, that you can learn, that you can improve on. But if you're having fun, that is the ultimate goal. And so if you find yourself in a spot where your dog's just not playing with the toy and you're getting frustrated because it's not working, but you know your dog loves chasing you around and jumping on you, and or your dog loves rolling around on the ground, or your dog loves playing with the ball, just switch it up and go back to doing something fun for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't have to get so fixated on doing something and getting it right that it's going to affect or not provide both the dog, and I say the handler too. Like, it's important for the dog to have fun and a positive experience, but if it's not positive for the owner, then it's also not going to probably continue, in the way that it needs to.
Yeah.
So just have fun and learn these things that we're talking about, practice them, but don't get so caught up that you
Mm-hmm.
have to get it perfect. It's
Yeah.
not about getting it perfect, and just observe your dog and just think to yourself, oh look, my dog really loves it when it rips the toy off me and I let it win it. He's bringing it back to me every time after that. So that gives you a really good indication my dog loves that part of the play. So
Mm.
do more of that. Do more of that and make that a little bit more challenging for him to do.
Mm.
Maybe there's something like you said, Sam, that you're doing and your dog's kind of balking at it, or they're just not really loving that part of the game. So just skip that part.
Mm. Yeah.
Tell the dog to out it. If you can get the dog to let it go, we haven't talked about that yet, but get the dog to let the toy go and then let them bite it, let them go straight back into the strike and struggle if that's what they love to do, rather than throwing the toy on the ground and making them chase it.
Yeah.
If a dog doesn't really love the struggle, but they love the chase, then just give them more of the chase. So
Absolutely.
it's a fluid exchange. It doesn't have to be this rigid, oh, we've got to go stalk, chase, strike, struggle. That's the awareness of what we're doing. But really it's dynamic, and it's going to really depend on your individual dog.
Mm.
And the fun part about all this is once you start doing it is that you get to learn that about your dog. You get to learn more about what they like, what they don't like. And, that's really cool.
It is really cool. It's actually really fun. It's actually, we might just be massive dog nerds, but I actually really, really enjoy it. It's really cool.
It is. It's fun. It's honestly, it is. I love it. It's again too, I don't know, there's something magical about it, It's,
The dogs really make me laugh. And especially because I did get a bit task focused on my play, because I was like, why can't I play? And I got a little bit, like probably I was focused on, I want to get this right. I wanted to get it right for the dog, but I was like, why can't I get this right? And now that I'm like more confident, and I had to let that go a bit, like I had to go, just
Don't
let
be
this
so
go a bit. And that's probably around the
focused
same.
on the outcome. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was probably around the same time that I was like, and you know what? I'm letting this dog chase this toy. I don't care. I'm throwing the toy. I don't care. I've had enough of all the pressure. Fuck it. I'm like, that's it. She wants to do it. I want her to be happy. I don't care if she chases, whatever. She's going to fail as a livestock guardian dog, then so be it. I'm letting her chase. And then we just started like leaning into that. Like, we're doing this for our fun and our relationship, and I need to burn some of that arousal before she then goes out onto her job, because otherwise she makes wild choices. She's all hopped up. So you give her a little bit of an outlet first before she goes and tries to be mature Kiki. And honestly, she is so funny. She cracks me up. I just love watching her be so silly with her toys. She's a big goofball. It's hilarious. And our little Staffy, Penny, she's hilarious when she plays. It's so funny.
I love playing with Staffies. I actually love playing with Staffies because they love to bite. They bite and they bite hard and they hang on.
Loves it.
And they're intense in their game sometimes.
Yeah,
but
she is.
It is.
Absolutely. All those things.
It is. It is. It's fun. And the dogs will do silly things too. And the dogs, they're really clever, and they anticipate you too. So they'll, as much as you're trying to figure out them and play the game with them, they'll be watching everything you do. And if you do the same move 3 or 4 times, your dog's going to start figuring that out, and they're
They
going to quickly
do.
learn that if they go a certain direction, they're going to be able to beat you,
Mm-hmm.
and they get really strategic. And what I like about play, when you really understand the game, when you understand it and you can play it and it's fluid and it's all fun, and you're not in your head, you're not in your head about it. You're just flowing. And then that's where strategy comes in, because then it becomes really fun, because then you're not only just playing, but it's like a game of wits,
Yeah.
and like I'll be moving the toy in a certain way, and I'll figure out that, oh, my dogs, they're figuring out that I've got this pattern that I didn't even know that I was doing, where I move the toy,
Yeah.
in a certain way. And so they stop chasing it all together and just wait for me to do the next move, and then
Yeah.
bang, they're on it, right? So then I have to think, all right, I'm gonna make them think that I'm gonna do that same move, but then I'm gonna do something different, and then you catch them out
Catch 'em
with
out.
it as well, or I'll be playing with the dog, and sometimes I'll, like, I don't know, throw another toy over on the ground over there just to distract them. And then when they chase the other toy, I like run away with the other toy, waving it in the air, going, haha, look what I've got. Right. And they get annoyed and come running back. So you're just having some fun with it, just
Yeah,
fun. And yeah, just have fun.
absolutely. So related to that, I think is really, we've touched on already, but letting the dog let go and get into it. Like really
Mm,
letting them just lose their composure. Like really just, when you're sort of playing, there's all these different
oh,
opinions out there about,
yeah.
letting dogs growl, or when they're
Let them
playing
grow.
tag and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And
It's,
it's so silly. Like we'll talk about how to manage this next, but let your dog go. And when they get all psyched up and lose their mind, let
mm,
them just totally reach that place of ah, kind of
mm,
stuff. It is awesome, and it's
mm.
not going to ruin your dog. You're not going to create problems with your dog by just letting them get into the game.
It's better they express that into the toy than into some other frustration behavior at
Mm,
some other point. And a lot of times, I think that's a good point, because a lot of times, like, sometimes I'm playing with dogs and it sounds aggressive. Like, it sounds like the dogs, showing like getting aggressive, like they're wanting to kill, all that sort of stuff as well. They're just 99% of the time just vocalizing,
mm.
like they're just making noise because they're having such a great time. And if you watch dogs play together, they'll do that. They'll vocalize, they'll grrr, pulling
Hmm.
the toy around or whatever. And it's completely normal. Your dog's not being aggressive because they're growling while they're shaking a toy and, trying to bite it. Exactly. I think that's a
Yeah.
really, really good point. Just let them express themselves. And that's the whole point of play. So long as it's safe, and so long as they're not trying to bite things they're not supposed to be biting,
Mm.
let them just go for it. And your choice of toy is important in that respect too, because if you're trying to play with a dog that loves to bite and loves to shake the toy around, maybe a ball may not be the best toy to play with in that scenario. Maybe
Yeah.
like getting a butterfly wedge, or like a French linen tug, or something that's made purposefully for bite development as
Hmm.
well. Like, and giving the dog a bigger target, something that's easier to grip into,
Yeah.
which we haven't talked about, but that's a whole nother part of play, is
That's
the
my very
choice of
next.
of toys.
That's my very next thing is is your toy presentation,
Mm,
which includes type of toy, because it is really hard if you've got a dog that's a bit of a loose cannon still, and they're working on their aim, they're working on their strike, they're working on their bite, so they're a bit messy. You can get your fingers bitten pretty easily. So,
mm,
or you can get yourself jumped on, or you can get all these things. So, learning to present your toy well. So, what toy presentation means is where you hold the toy for the
mm,
dog to come
mm,
and strike it off of you.
mm,
The best place to hold that toy, I know, guys, most of you aren't watching us, but it's out to the side of your body. So, two hands usually out to the side of your body and down low, sort of around your knees, or like your dog's head height. So as they come in, they can grab it and kind of keep going, or they can grab it and you can kind of catch the dog. So you're going to catch a little bit of their momentum, come back with them a bit, and then you can move into a game of tug or something like that, because they'll get a lot of like force or like excitement into the bite of the toys, the strike of the toy. So you just catch that a little bit and then either, let them take it with them or go into your tug game. I was getting my toy presentation all wrong with my livestock guardian dog, and it was causing me so many dramas. And I had to buy a special, like a tug toy. But what they are, if you look up on like Amazon or something like that, you can get, they're kind of like, is it jute? What's that material that
You,
a lot of
you,
them
yeah, you can get different types.
ones?
So the better one, well, again, they're different textures too. So
Yeah.
a jute tug toy is traditionally it'll look like the same material as the like a bite sleeve that you might see
Hmm.
from an old school kind of Schutzen bite sleeve, but it's I don't even know how to explain what it is, but it's like a
The
woven type
the
sort of
one I've
material.
got, it sort of looks like Hessian. Like it's sort
Yeah,
of, it's that
yeah.
like that
Well,
color, and
yeah,
it's
so
like a weave sort of.
yeah, but so jute is a little bit thicker and it's a little bit the texture of it is a little bit harder. And
Yeah.
then you've got other ones. Sometimes you'll get tug toys that are similar style that are made out of like fire hose material,
Oh
which is a
yeah.
bit tougher, a little bit durable. Some dogs will find it difficult to sink their teeth into those ones, though. So
Mm.
sometimes a little bit harder. And also French linen. Now, I find that the French linen tugs across the board for a broader range of dogs are probably the better choice
Okay.
because they're a similar kind of material, and but it's a bit softer. The material is a bit softer. It's easier for dogs to sink their teeth into it.
Hmm.
And if you're just sort of like trying to have a general game of play, they're good ones to use. If
Yeah.
you're trying to actually teach a dog to grip and bite harder, then you might want to use it purposefully. Choose a toy that's a little bit harder to grip
Mm.
onto, so they
Hmm.
have to use a bit more jaw pressure to hold on to it.
Good tips. So those tugs that we're talking about, they're like firm, and they're like it almost looks like, I don't know, I guess like 20, you get different sizes, but mine's probably like 20 centimeters long ish.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's probably like it's like a cylinder almost shape, looks like a breadstick, like kind of
Imagine like a sock that's been filled up full of something and two handles on each end of it.
sock with a pool noodle inside it,
Yeah.
two
That's a good
handles,
visual. That's a good visual. That's a good visual. Yeah.
two handles on the edge that are just like, yeah, they're
They're
soft.
just
Yeah.
they're like
So the idea
limits.
is I was holding out like softish, more soft toys, but you can't
Mm,
hold a softer toy out off of your hand with the
mm,
same, get the same level of direction off of your hand as what
yeah,
you can with a stiff toy that you can
yeah,
hold out away from your body. So if you're having issues with your dogs, like jumping up on you or biting your fingers and stuff like that, we're going to teach them not to do that. But if we're trying to get engagement and play as the first thing, then well, even when you teach them not to do that, toy presentation is really important for that.
yeah.
Now, people will be thinking of like this and going, okay, so how does this relate to my therapy dog? So we are going to need rules in our
Hmm.
play with our
Hmm.
therapy dogs, because we don't want our therapy dogs playing with every client in this like more unhinged kind of out there
Yeah.
sort of play. Some
Mm,
clients, yes, but some clients, no. And to help with that, I would really suggest having certain toys that indicate a certain game for our
hmm.
dogs, and then toys that are sort of less exciting and less arousal sort of stuff. So that's one way you can do it. We absolutely have to do that with our Staffy because she is very playful and she is a loose unit. So I have to be careful if I let my kids play with her. I say you cannot, don't just hold the toy and muck
Mm,
around, because kids like to like muck around and tease dogs and things. I'm like, you are going to get a Staffy flying straight at you if you do that with the toy. And if I had a young person who couldn't follow those directions, we would just not be able to play
yeah,
those sorts of games with the dog,
yeah.
because I don't have enough voice control over her yet in those sorts of settings. But that's the other thing that we're doing, is really trying to teach her get it, and that she's, so I'm introducing now, this is what I'm currently working on with her, is that impulse control of not just striking
Yeah.
just because the toy is moving or just because
Yeah.
you want it, waiting until we mark her that she
Yeah.
can release her into the strike. But remember, she's only like 12 months old. So we've spent the first 12 months developing that drive into the game. So
Good.
there's been a lot of fuck yeah, fuck shit up, like
Mhm.
absolutely. And now I'm starting to put
Yeah.
a few little
Nice.
parameters in place that are going to be helpful. So during that time, while we've been developing the dog and she's a bit of a loose unit, absolutely, I have been careful with her with toys with the clients because she doesn't
Yeah.
have the manners yet.
Mhm.
Where it's not a problem for us, like me and my partner, we're adults, like we know how to present toys and, you know, it's not a problem for us, but certainly a smaller person who's not expecting it and, you know, whatever, if she was to jump up and try and grab, because she can jump so high, all 4 feet off the ground, this thing levitates, mate, and it's so funny. She's hilarious. But we don't want that happening, you know, with a client that's not expecting it and a young dog who doesn't fully understand, like, well, you don't just launch yourself at
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. 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 There's got to be some rules for sure.
Yeah, so but I think that's I think that the
With
specific toys can be helpful too.
yeah, with the toy too, like you're right, you know, dogs, as I'm sure you guys talk about all the time, or at least you would talk about it, is the association that dogs will have to different types of equipment. It's a
Mm.
similar sort of thing. So having like I tell people that this toy that you use for play is like the sacred hallelujah item that only comes out
Yeah.
for play. So if
For
you
play with you.
with you, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I would, I guess my advice, just looking at that whole scenario that you're trying to avoid there, would be to just make sure that that particular toy is not in the room.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
when you've got kids or other people around, you know, and and also just think about your individual dog, right? So if your dog, it's good, yes, to let them play and express themselves. But if they are a bit more of a loose unit, like your Staffy, you know, maybe we might want to limit the amount of toys that are actually in the room when we're doing
Yeah.
some work with some people, you know, like maybe we just
And
want to
that would
remove that.
completely solve if you had a
Yeah,
problem, that would
yeah.
completely solve
Yeah.
it.
So what you would do is give the dog a play session before you go to work
Yeah.
with that sacred item at home. And, you know, even further to that too, if you want dogs to really be clear that play is not something we do in the classroom, then just don't ever play with them in that environment.
Mm.
Okay. Just keep that environment for calm.
Yep.
That's calm space. That's
Yep.
calm space. We do these activities. You know, if there's specific things that you want them to engage in with the patients or I don't know what you call the people you work with, clients,
consumers, whatever.
students, okay, whatever. But just dogs are contextual and they're environmental in the way they see the world. So if you play with them in the classroom where you normally want them to be calm, then you're opening a space to tell them that it's okay for you to do this activity here. You know, and so maybe you need to just think about where you're going to play with them and what you're using it for. And it's not the sort of thing that you would go, okay, cool. Well, my dogs, I want them to do a long stay in the classroom. So then when they're still a really good long stay, I'm going to reward them and pull out the toy and play with them for that particular long stay because that's not an appropriate environment to play, period. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah. And all of your dogs are different. So some dogs are going to need a lot more structure around their play because they're already loose units. Some dogs aren't going to need as much because there might just be your little golden retriever who just has a really nice relationship with play and toys, and you know, it's something that's been a challenge and the dog plays with your clients really well and it's not an issue and whatever. I have always had toy boxes. Sunny, my old Labrador, he would always, whenever someone arrived, he'd go to the toy box and pick up a toy and then go and invite them to play with him and would play fetch and keep away. So that was like it was perfect. And Nala has certain toys. I put them out on the floor because she likes to run past. When the person comes, she runs past and picks up a toy off the floor and then she goes and tries and gives it to the person.
to play. Cute.
Yeah. Whereas Oliver's, I missed the boat on, that's my border collie. He's not a toy guy. So that's those dogs, that's totally different. The Staffy is a different story. And so they're all different. All of our environments are different. Our client groups are different. We play. So I still have toys in the room when I have my Staffy with me, and she will bring out the toys and she'll bring it to someone and get them to throw it for her and stuff like that. She can absolutely do that. There's a level of play that can exist in the indoor space it's a smaller space. So it seems to keep the dogs like, it's just a level, do you know what I mean, of arousal that they get to. Whereas, or probably that I allow them to get to as well. Whereas if I let a client take the dogs out into the lawn with me and we'll go take the dogs outside, she's leveled up. She's leveled up, and that's where we have to, because that's where we play with her.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
Out there. And so that's when, if someone picks up a toy, I have to, before, and obviously safety for all the stuff I do, but I have to talk about, okay, well, so we can take the dogs out here and I'll have her on the lead. So when I let her off the lead, this is what she's going to want to do, and this is what it's going to look like, and da-da-da. And the reason I know that is because we can play with her every day. Like, I know exactly what she's going to do.
Yeah.
And I know exactly which toys, like we've got toys that you can kick, like balls you can kick, and she will do that for ages, or, you know, that sort of thing. But if you start picking stuff up and mucking around, she's going to be coming to strike that toy eventually. So that's why we have to start working on, but I don't want to squash that in a young dog by having too many rules in the play for a really young dog that we're developing into this space. Whereas, you know, as they get older and they're already committed to the play, like she loves play.
Yeah.
So we're at a point where we can start to have a few more rules around it.
It needs to go that way. You need to build the value of the game, and then start putting the controls in place. And when you start doing that, it depends on your dog. You know, you might start doing that with a puppy if they're really committed to the game and they know the rules.
Yeah.
You know, you can definitely start adding controls in, and it's good to do that sooner rather than later if your dog's committed. But if you put in too many rules too early, again, it just takes out the fun. And so if your dog is still learning how to chase the toy and learning how to put in effort, but then all of a sudden when they grab it and they put in effort and you're trying to get them to like out it, or every time they bring it into you, you try to get them to let it go, they're going to stop bringing it into you because they're going, this is no fun. So even when we do put controls in, we still need to be careful that we're not overbearing with the level of rules and controls in the game as well. Just got to get that balance, but it does have to be clear. Like when we ask you to let the toy go, there's an expectation now that you have to do that.
Yeah.
You know, or if the game stops, I always put a finish cue on the game.
Yeah.
And I always put a finish cue on it. And I always make sure that we don't always have the same length of time for the game. So sometimes it'll be 30 seconds. Sometimes it'll be 2 minutes. Sometimes it'll be 10 minutes, right? But when I say finish, the game's done. The game's finished, you know, and how we teach that is, you know, we say finish and we move away, keeping the toy really close to our body so that we're not actually moving it around or having any mistakes from the dog to think, oh, you're moving the toy away, now I'm allowed to chase it. But then also putting those boundaries in place and go back to having your dog on the lead, which I spoke about earlier, right? So if you've said finished and your dog's just being a pest and they're not listening to you in that regard, then just, you know, it's okay to be firm in that moment and let them know that it's not okay for you to do this. I've said finished. We're done. No, it's okay. They need those boundaries put in place to learn, because think about an excited kid who's just so excited, you know, and then you're trying to tell them, okay, we're finished now, but they want to keep playing. And it's, you know, you need to be consistent and just firm and saying, no, we're not playing anymore. Now, how we communicate that to a dog and a child obviously will be very different than how we do that, but putting the boundary in place. And,
well, the reason that we need a really good finish on our dogs is because we don't have a finish on the kids.
There you go. Yeah.
Because they've got they're still developing their impulse control, or they've got ADHD or whatever's going on. And so when I try and tell kids, like, well, we're going to move on to this next activity or whatever, and they're like, nope, I'm playing with the dog. Well, I have to be able to say to the dog, guess what? You're done.
Yeah.
And then the dogs look at the kids like, sorry, bro, I'm out. It's over, and then the game ends more naturally because I've
if
told
you
the
grab
dog
that toy, you're on your own. I'm not helping you.
Yeah, the toy is lava, bro. Don't touch it.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good point. So you have to have those controls in there, and going back into adding those controls in. I mean, we're full circle back now to what we were talking about at the start, where we can add in sits and downs, and you can even you can bring your bed outside or play in the lounge room, and then grab the toy get the toy off the dog, and then go on your bed. They run to their bed, give them a minute on their bed, and then invite them off for another play. So it's okay to use play like that and start adding things into it, and just be creative with it. Like if it's an environment where you can be creative with it, have a strong reinforcement outcome for a behavior, and not have any risks of it, affecting anybody in other adverse ways, go for it. And it helps. It just helps the dog to learn to listen to you. And it's fun and it's engaging, and but you've got to have the controls for safety. And I guess the number one thing you need to be able to make sure you do when you're building play, especially as it starts to get a bit more intense, is for the dog to understand an out command.
Yeah, and like we were really lucky with our Staffy because she loves the strike so much. So her out is perfect because she wants to strike. So what we mean by that, guys, when we say out, is like the releasing the toy. So I would say give to my other dogs. And so that's when they've got the toy and you're telling them to let it go and give it to you or drop it on the ground or whatever it is. So a lot of dog trainers will use out, the word out for that. The thing when you're teaching an out or a give is when you first start teaching it is that you should let the dog then strike straight back into the toy again, like straight away, immediately. Like the second they out it, you release them or mark them back into the toy, into the game, so that they learn that, it's not that the game ends. That's how the game like gets jazzed up.
That's it. And a lot of people play tug of war with their dogs or run around and build the energy and have the game, and then when they finish the game, that's when they do the out. And the dog knows. The dog reads everything that you're doing. They know, like the way that you're moving, the way that you're starting to present yourself. You're going to tell me to let it go, right? Which means the game's going to be over. And so it makes it harder for the dog to let it go because they want the game to keep going. So exactly that, and when you're teaching it out, if there's pressure, or if there's pressure on the toy, like you're tense and you're trying to pull the toy off them while you're teaching them an out, you've got Buckley's chance. If you've got a strong dog that loves to hold on, because by holding that toy tight and trying to pull it off them, you're inviting the game to continue, because that's what the game is. Where it's like I try to get the toy off you, you try to get the toy off me. So it's really important that if you're starting to get your dog to let it go, we want them to, how I just said that they'll read your cue. So they'll know when you're getting ready to tell them to let it go. So we want to make that really obvious for the dog, so that when we act a certain way, the dog knows that, there's an out coming. I've got to let it go. Right. But we also want them to know if I let the toy go, that's the fastest way for the game to start again. So what I like to teach people to do is to be really purposeful with how we do it. So I teach people to go all the way down to the toy and hold it as close to the dog's mouth as you can on both sides. So there's no room there for the dog to kind of like chatter on it, let it go, regrip. Like we're going right down and we're holding the toy right next to the dog's mouth. And then we bring the toy into our leg. Now, whether we pull the dog into us or whether we step into the dog, it doesn't really matter. But what we need to make sure that we do once we do that is that everything stops and we lock it. So we lock that toy in on our leg. So we're kind of pushing the toy into our leg. We're not trying to fight the dog and pulling the toy out of the dog's mouth. The dog's going to try and pull the toy away from you, but you want to lock it in on your leg by pushing it into your leg, because it's going to minimize the actual amount of give in that toy when the dog's trying to pull it, right?
So less feedback.
So when the dog will keep trying to pull the toy, but they're not getting that same give and take that they're getting in a tug of war game, because it's locked in at your leg, right? Now, initially you just got to wait it out. You just got to wait and wait and wait. You don't say anything, give them no feedback, don't tell them no, don't correct them, don't try to do anything to give them any feedback other than just kind of let them figure it out. Eventually they'll let it go because the game gets boring pretty quick like that.
Yeah.
So when they do let it go, you go, yes, and then step away with the toy and they can chase the toy and regrip, like Sam said, let them re-engage straight away. Okay. Now it's really important when we're doing this. Don't shove the toy back in the dog's mouth. All right. Because the dogs going to end up associating letting the toy go with something unpleasant because they don't like it when you shove it in their mouth. Okay. They let it go. You step away and the dog will re-engage with the toy by coming to the toy to bite it. Okay. And then let them have another play. Right. But when you're teaching it, it's good to do a few reps in a row for the dog to start to get it, you know?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't go out, bite, out, bite, out, bite, out, bite like that. But you want to get some flow happening with it. So you might go out, do an out, they let it go, they get to play again and just play for 15 seconds and then do another one, right? They let it go, re-engage, play for another 15 seconds. If they let it go a lot easier on the next time rounds, when they re-engage with it again, maybe let them win the toy after the strike, right? Because they've given you some progression. And then just add them into your play intermittently, but do 2 or 3 at a time and then have a break.
Yeah.
So they're not learning that, I'm having to let it go every single time, but there's enough reps for them to start to get the concept that if I let it go quickly, because if you do one and then you do another one 5 minutes later, they've forgotten about that first one that you did.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so 2 or 3, have some more play in between and then another 2 or 3, but always reward them with a re-strike or a re-grip and a little bit of play in between each rep. Once the dog starts getting the picture, like the actual visual picture of what you're doing, so you lock up and stand still, the dog lets the toy go, and you're getting pretty reliable behaviors with them letting the toy go, then you can start adding your command onto it. But don't start saying out or let it go or whatever cue word you want to use. If it's the first time you've done it, and you're holding the toy and wanting them to let it go and you're going out, 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 out while the dog's holding onto the toy, the dog's just learning that holding onto the toy is associated with the word out. So you're actually like teaching them the opposite.
Yeah,
okay?
you're teaching a hold.
So don't be surprised then when you say out and your dog's, I am outing. Okay, because you've taught them that, right? So you want to wait till the dog knows the action before you pair a word with it. And then as you can see the dog starting to loosen their grip on it, you get ready. And then it's that sort of second after they let it go, or as they're letting it go, you would say out, attach the command onto that action, and then yes, or click and re-grip and start again. But it's really important to do that. Otherwise, your dog's not going to learn to associate the word, because by the time you actually do start putting the word out onto the action, you've said it 1,000 times for the dog actually holding onto the toy. So it's going to be confusing for them.
Yeah. And I would already have my release into the toy. So we use Get It for our dogs. I think all of them. And I just teach that by, when I'm first playing with the toy and making the toy attractive, I'll be saying, get it. And then,
I do the same thing. Yeah,
they're allowed to get it. They're allowed to get it. So if I am practicing that out, even if before you using the word out, when they do let go, make sure you use your release word into the toy. So whether that's get it, whether that's yes, whether that's a click or something like that, I find that makes my life a little bit easier, especially. So same thing when I'm starting to teach the impulse control, like with Penny now, on the toy might be moved because we've used her prey drive into toy to get her excited about it. Now I'm starting to teach her, I understand that the toy is moving, but that doesn't mean that you can get it yet. We've been saying get it every time we throw her ball, every time we kick her ball, every time we release her into the toy, it's get it every time, because the whole point is that the absence of the words get it means don't get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it just makes things a bit easier if you kind of have a bit of an idea and you start pairing those words up along the
I
way,
guess
and then you can add
I,
more controls along the way.
for sure. I guess it's a marker like any other
Yeah.
marker, you know, it's a marker for the dog to go, okay, you're released, you can go and get the toy. You
Yeah.
know, like I generally, when I'm playing with dogs, will use the marker. Like I'll say yes, or I'll use the click when I'm teaching specific things, because
Mm.
when I'm teaching out in particular, particularly if I've taught that dog on a marker in other areas and they understand what that marker is. So if they let the toy go
Mm.
and then I click, and the moment they're letting it go, then we're attaching the reward
Yeah.
association to that action. So, you know, it's a similar sort of thing with a bit of a slight difference.
Yeah.
You get it is very, very specific to actually releasing to chase the toy,
Yeah.
as opposed to, okay, now you can go and get your reward.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
similar in that respect as well. So for sure, I think it's
Mm.
good to have something that you can use. Like we used to use the word rouse, right? That was our release word for our dogs to be able to, okay, you can go and get and chase that guy and take him down, you know?
Mhm.
So having a specific word just to allow the chase is a good thing for sure.
Mm. Well, especially for a very prey drivey, very strike
Yeah,
happy little staffy that can jump 6 feet in the air.
for sure.
And that's another nuance as well. To like Nala doesn't have that. My Labrador. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
I've done things, and Kiki's stuff is different again. My livestock
Yeah.
guardian dog, it's all different again. So there's definitely nuances between what you want to implement for your dogs. But I hope this has given people some ideas to get
Mm.
started. If you want to get in touch with Tim to, talk more about play, or, you might want to organize some sessions to get Tim to review your play videos and tell you all the weird things you're doing wrong. That might be a bit of fun.
Are you
How
going
do
to send me some of
people
yours?
Oh my God, I've got so many play videos, hilarious. And all my puppy and adolescent school guys have seen them. They're
Yeah.
all first person filming, which is terrible. But yeah, lots of Kiki biting me from my terrible toy presentations early on.
Mhm.
But yeah, we've made some progress there. But I'm not finished with her play. I'm not 100%. It's not exactly how I want it. It's
I,
a it's in progress. Is that the right word?
I don't think it will ever be like
Mm.
finished. Like just keep evolving with it. Just keep
Mm.
changing things. I keep trying new things. Yeah, it's experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's going to grow and mature as well. And we still don't know if she's going to have a brain snap and turn into an absolute lunatic, because sometimes these dogs do. So when they're
Okay.
about 2 years old,
Yeah.
that's when people start having their actual problems with them, is when they
Yeah.
mature. So we're
Okay.
just like hoping for the best and doing a lot of work as well
For sure.
in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
meantime.
Yeah.
How
So yeah,
exciting. Lots of stuff coming up for you. So thanks for sharing all that. And thanks so much for spending your time with me today,
that's
hanging out
okay.
and talking about play. I'm
It
excited. We've been talking about this for ages. So I've been really
mm,
wanting to do a bit of a deep dive, and we have today. We've been
I,
recording for ages. So
I'd like I'd like to say to all the listeners that actually got to the end of this podcast, thank you for
well done.
staying. It's been a long one. It's such a big topic, and I think it's obviously something that we're both quite passionate about as
Mm.
well. So because
Yeah.
we just talk forever about the same thing over and over sometimes. But yeah, so if you're still listening, thank you. I really appreciate you taking that time to stay with us. And yeah, if you like any of the stuff that you heard today and you're curious to find out more, just reach out. I'd love to chat to you.
And most importantly, guys, play with your dogs.
Yeah, go have some fun.
All right.
Make it
Thanks,
fun.
Tim.
Okay, thanks, Sam.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you're interested in studying with Therapy Dogs Australia, or you have a few more questions before deciding, please get in touch with us by emailing courses@therapydog.com.au or visiting our website at www.therapydog.com.au for more information and FAQs.